Hey, it's Kevin Law with the New Warehouse Podcast here at MODEX 2020. And we are in Atlanta. We're at the New Warehouse Podcast booth. It is day 3, and I am joined by Brandon Ashby. He is a partner at Warehouse Engineers. Brandon actually came by the booth, saw the podcast. He is a self-admitted podcast nerd. He said he's very into podcasts. So he wanted to talk to us and try and jump on it. We have some time, so he's here. He's actually here as an attendee, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his company, Warehouse Engineers, what they do. I think we're going to get a little into standard work and lean, some of my favorite things. So, Brandon, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Kevin and Eric, thanks for having me. Yeah, I've really enjoyed MODEX so far. And like I said, I download podcasts every time I'm about to take a road trip for the commute. So I saw this and I said, just got to see what these guys are about. And, you guys are doing great things.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Warehouse Engineers is actually a very simple business model. I'm an industrial engineer for hire that focuses on warehouses. So industrial engineering is all about process improvement, standardized work, working with your people and developing processes. And so that's what Warehouse Engineers, that's what we're about. It's just working with people and developing the process.
All right, very cool. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you kind of got to start this company?
Great question. So I actually went to Georgia Tech over 10 years ago, majored in industrial engineering, and then first job, it was with a company that had never hired an industrial engineer before. They were worried about
experience, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, because there was no standard work. There were no rates as far as productivity. We had metrics related to the equipment, but as far as what people were doing, that was a foreign concept. Yeah, so fast forward to the Great Recession, they eliminated capital spending. My boss said, well, I've read about this thing called lean manufacturing. I want you to take another class at Georgia Tech called the Lean Champion. Took that class, came back. I was, a kid in a candy store, had all these great ideas, but we had to go at a slow pace because there were some learning curves, there were some stumbling blocks. But anyways, that facility, eventually we became lean. We became lean, we developed the standard work, we did the process improvement, implemented the thing called 5S. From there, got the bigwig corporate job and started working with different warehouses across the country, internally and externally. So in my position, I was working with great consultants, great companies, and then again, I went back to Georgia Tech to get another certificate in engineering the warehouse. So my space, my projects have been in warehousing. So I said, let me start a business where I help others in warehousing with my experiences and the value that I can bring to them.
Very cool. So you mentioned no standard work. So why don't we talk a little bit about the importance of standard work? You mentioned 5S. So obviously one of the S's of the 5S is to standardize, right? So tell us a little bit about, I guess, the importance of standard work, and then talk to us about how you went about implementing that standard work and kind of creating that standard work at that company.
Great. Yeah, so importance of standard work. Used to, at a facility, especially in manufacturing or distribution, you had a lot of tribal knowledge. So you had people that have been there 10, 20 years, and their experience mattered, and you didn't have to train that much, and turnover wasn't as high. But what I've been seeing, especially in the last year, the economy is low. Economy is great. Unemployment is low. Yeah, unemployment is low. And it's hard to get people in the facility. And so the training on the onboarding is taking longer than it should. And that's because there's no standard work, So like you might have a simple Word document that has a few steps that people wrote down.
But that's not a standard work.
No, it's not. We need some pictures. We need it visual. And then we also need training and a standard to go against that. So oftentimes what I tell people is it's not to get people in trouble. It's not to say you're not meeting the standard. It's to help them do better. So if we have an operator B that's not performing well as operator A, well, what's the standard to help B get to A, right?
Right.
It's not to nitpick and make people worse, or to pick on them. It's to help the organization as a whole do better.
Definitely. And I think, that kind of leads into one of the other aspects of 5S where, you have standardized, but then you have sustain, right? And if you're doing the same thing every time, which the standard work should dictate, then you should never have an issue, right?
Yes. Actually, I was talking to somebody this morning, and they said, well, 5S, it doesn't work. It's a flavor of the month. And I said, well, are you sustaining it?
That's the mindset, though.
Yes, that's what I've learned. And
Right.
a lot of people, they've tried this before, and it didn't work. And I said, well, I can help.
Yeah.
Give me a shot. I can definitely help you. But the sustaining is key. And
Right.
in my experience, it's developing an audit that employees audit each other.
Right.
So there's a sense of ownership and a sense of collaboration amongst the employees.
Definitely. I think that's really important too. We just mentioned the mindset because it's like you can't have like 10 out of 50 employees that are into the 5S and the lean. It's got to be everybody across the board, and it's got to start with the top guy, right? The top
Yes.
guy or gal, and they got to kind of drive it down.
Yes.
And I think the other thing too is when you have the standard work, but when you start to deviate from that a little bit, then you start to feel like this doesn't matter, this doesn't work. But when you start to deviate, that's when you get all kinds of issues.
Yes, 100%. And I think that's where you have to even audit the standard work.
Right.
So sometimes I've seen it where people write the SOP, whatever it may be, and then it just starts collecting dust.
Right.
It needs to be a living, active document.
Right.
And I'll even say, because you can apply standard work in a work office setting, right?
Yeah.
And I used to be not a fan of standard work because I wanted to say, well, I can do this better.
Right.
And the continuous improvement is a part of the standard work. So when you do the audit, you give the operators a chance to improve that document.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's an important part too, and I think that having that standard work available to employees as well is really important because you want them to be able to reference it. Like say they move to a different department that they're cross-trained in, kind of, but they're not. They're there maybe like once a month, and they need to like refresh themselves. They should be able to pull that real quick and see what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah. No, in my experience, there's always that one guy that knows everything.
Yeah.
But what do you do when that one guy goes on vacation?
Right. Exactly.
Because when he goes on vacation, Murphy's Law, something's going to happen, and that's where the value of standard work and documenting it really comes into play.
Definitely, yeah. And if it's not documented, then it doesn't exist.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So talk to us a little bit about some of the projects that you've now done under this warehouse engineers company, and how that kind of works.
Oh, great! Yeah, great question. So as warehouse engineers, one of my first projects was just developing a roadmap, developing a plan.
Okay.
So lean it's foreign to some people, and then when you start talking about Polka, Yoka, the different ways, they're not exactly 100% sure what that is.
Right. Yeah.
And so
what are these funny words? Yeah.
the 5S.
Yeah.
So, my job was to come in. What they hired me to do was to develop that plan in English of how this looks, and who would be the leader and what that leader does and what is the daily, weekly, monthly functions of these responsibilities. Okay. And now I'm coaching, per se. So we hit it really hard and we were on the floor, and now I'm coaching them as they implement and started their lean journey.
Gotcha. So you kind of come in, take kind of full control of the thing, and then kind of push the lean, push the 5S out, and then you're actually now kind of, I guess, letting go a little bit, letting them take ownership for their processes and making sure that they own the 5S and the lean, right? Which is kind of part of the whole lean culture, right? Yeah.
So I'm another way you could look at me as an industrial engineer for hire, shared service model. So I'm by no means trying to be at a facility for a year, right? I want to be there for a few months, and we collaborate, work together, and then it's time for me to move on, and that organization runs better.
So I'm curious. So anytime I talk to somebody about like lean and people that are lean enthusiasts and pro lean and all that, I'm always curious because obviously there's the people that I'll just say people are like lean is stupid, it doesn't make any sense, and what do you do when you run into like those type of either managers or employees too?
Oh, that's a great question because I remember when we first started Lean, I got a lot of pushback internally.
Right.
And I say if it makes the operator or the associate's job easier, let's work with it.
Yeah.
And so I guess I've had success in my experiences making people's job easier with Lean tools.
Okay.
And when people's job gets easier, there's less pushback.
Right.
And then the other piece that makes me a little bit different, and I'll be honest, I'm not a 100% Lean purist.
Okay.
So there's some people that, they're going to use every Lean tool and they're going to make sure you have to follow it by, circle has to fit in that circle.
Yeah, no matter what.
That's not my approach. I'm flexible, understanding your culture, but the premise is continuous improvement. You have a problem, let's solve a problem.
Right, definitely. So what do you think about, Paul Akers at all? Paul Akers, 2 second Lean or no?
I can't say. Is he with?
Oh, okay. So he's he has a book that he wrote. It's called 2 second Daily Lean or something. So
okay.
So I'm gonna recommend you check it out.
No, definitely.
He's definitely. I don't know if you would call him a Lean purist, but he's super into Lean, like really, really big time. And his company is really, really interesting too. So, So, how can people kind of get in touch with you and find out more about warehouse engineers?
So I definitely have a website. The website is thewarehouseengineers.com.
Okay.
And then I'm on LinkedIn. I just got my YouTube channel going.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, no podcast, but I'll be sure to share this one. So LinkedIn, my email, and the website.
Okay, cool. And how do you find you on YouTube?
So my channel is The Warehouse Engineers. I'm working on that content, and we're just going to be publishing tips on lean warehousing, lean tools, and process improvement within the warehouse space.
Oh, okay. Really cool, really cool. So we'll definitely share all that stuff on the newwarehouse.com as well, put all the information up there. So Brandon, thank you so much for showing interest and stopping by and talking to us.
No, appreciate it, Kevin and Eric.